Hello everyone, welcome back to Collective Creative Initiative. My name is Aisha Numa, and we've already had some fantastic sessions this morning, but we've got another wonderful one coming up for you in just a second. I will be chatting to Joe Eaton-Kent, all about their experience as an actor, particularly having a look at their experience moving from stage to screen, which is, I know, something that a lot of our viewers are often very interested in. Don't forget, if you would like to ask Joe any questions during this next talk, all you need to do is be subscribed to our YouTube channel. So if you are signed into YouTube and you click the subscribe button, you'll see a little live chat box pop up. You can ask Joe any questions in there. Bear in mind that there is a slight delay on the questions from them coming from your computer to us. So don't leave anything until the last minute if you've got a burning question. Please do pop it in and we'll get around to it as and when we can. But if there is a slight delay, you'll have to just bear with us on that one. Okay, I'm going to bring in Joe. Here we go. Hey.
Hi.
Hi, how are you today?
I'm well, thank you. Very nice to be here.
Yes, it's exciting to have you on, I must say. Well, Thank you very much for joining us today. We are very excited to hear all about your life and your experiences. I think I can see people are popping in to watch already, so I suggest we jump straight in.
Yeah,
why don't you tell us a little bit about you, Joe, about how you sort of started in this industry? Where did it all begin?
Let's start at the very beginning. I was born into a very dramatic family, actually, by fate, as it would have it. I was actually born to a theatre director and a writer and a composer as my mum.
So it could have been in your blood already.
It really is. My dad actually, he's worked with, he started off at the New Vic in Stoke, and then he went on to do things like the London Bubble, Bob Eaton, this is, and he ended up working at the Belgrade Theatre in Coventry. He was the artistic director of that theatre. He's worked at Liverpool Everyman, Liverpool Royal Court.
Liverpool, yay!
Yeah, he's in Liverpool.
Yeah.
And he wrote one of his claims to fame. Claims to fame is that he wrote the Actor-Musicianship show Lennon, which was based on the life of John Lennon, written the year after he died. It went to off Broadway in 1982. Then did a West End debut in 1985. And so that's kind of when my dad started things, and then my mum, she studied at Rose Bruford, which I ended up studying at Rose Bruford as well. She was part of the Hot Doris band, and she ended up retraining to become a writer, and she's had her plays touring around the country. I'm very lucky, very blessed, for lack of a better phrase, to have the family that I have, I suppose. Yeah.
I feel like I'm in the presence of theatre royalty here. You've got everything going for you there already. So that's a great start to your. So does that mean, did you start doing the sort of acting music classes when you were a toddler, or?
Yes, it was very much a thing of just dancing around the living room, singing along to all the Disney hits, Hellfire from The Hunchback of Notre Dame, that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Yes, and I think it was, I remember when I was about 9, my mum describes it differently. What I remember going to see, because I grew up in Coventry because my dad was working at the Belgrade Theatre. I remember watching Les Mis, which was done by the local youth operetta group, and I must have said to my mum, "Oh, Mum, I really want to be in that kind of stuff. I want to do that." And my mum was trying to tell me as much as she could, "Don't become an actor. Don't do it." She started as an actor, but I wouldn't listen. And she phoned up, and she got me an audition, and I didn't even realize that that's what she was up to. And next thing she told me, she was like, "You have an audition?" I went, "What's that mean? What do I have to do?" God. And I handled.
Talk about throwing you in the deep end, eh?
Yeah, I somehow handled the pressure. But then I ended up getting involved with them. I did a few shows with them, and then after that, I caught the bug and went to school. I went to Rose Bruford College in Sidcup. I trained in actor-musicianship because I actually, as you can probably see here, I learnt the violin. My mum was very insistent that I learn musical instruments. She got me started on the piano. I actually learnt the violin from the age of 6, and I had lessons until I was 18, I think. I even transitioned over to the viola a little bit, just as a means of playing around, because I think that the the trajectory was that I was going to be going to a field that would require me to know a lot of instruments, that kind of thing.
So piano, violin, viola.
And I picked up trombone, but that's another, I'll get to that.
Okay, okay, we're getting there.
But yes, so I went along to Rose Bruford College with all these instruments. I studied actor-musicianship. And the course was being run by Jeremy Harrison at the time. It was a transitional moment. He was kind of moving on to start the master's degree at Rose Bruford, but he was still our course leader, and he'd worked with my dad previously in times gone by.
Well, it is a small world, this industry, always.
It's all kind of interwoven. So yeah, it was kind of it just seemed like a natural progression. It's all in the family. But I talk about nepotism. I did my training there for 3 years. During that time, I was also working with my dad on a couple of shows. I remember at the Belgrade Theatre, I was getting the chance to work on some of the shows that are happening in the venue. There was one which was 3 Minute Heroes, which is based on the, what was it? I'm kind of going back and forward here, but this was back in 2014. I went to college in 2015, but in 2014, 3 Minute Heroes happened. It was based on the two-tone revival of 1979, and yes, like the specials and the selector, madness, and it was all based in Coventry. It was very homegrown, and from that, the cast of that show went on to form a ska band. So I was in a ska band for about 3 years. Even through college, I was having to track back from London to Coventry.
Wow.
To do gigs, I was going to. But our drummer was actually the drummer from the original Selector outfit, H. Bembridge.
My goodness.
He managed to get involved because my dad was like, well, H, I've got this show happening. Do you want to get involved? And he was like, yeah, man, I'll get involved. And next thing you know, we're all, going to the Ska Festival in Poole and like rocking the crowd. It's a surreal experience thinking about it now.
And by the sounds of it, this is before you'd had any kind of this all started before you'd had any kind of formal training in any of this.
Yes,
you'd had your music lessons and stuff. But
this was all, it's youth theatre and doing a bit of drama at school. Nothing to do with the holistic kind of vocational training.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was really grassroots, I suppose. But then on top of that, we also made an EP, which is on iTunes.
Okay, so if anyone wants to find your IP, oh my gosh, what's wrong? Okay, if anyone wants to find your EP on iTunes, there you go, I did it. What do they have to look for?
It's called Fat Cat, which is PHAT for Fat Cat, by Ruder Than You. That was the name of the band, Ruder Than You. They're still going. I'm just not part of it anymore.
Amazing.
But, Ruder Than You with a letter U as opposed to the word U. That's already abandoned.
Okay. So everyone go find that now. That's your next one.
Yeah, that's a portion of my history. And then at college, I got to just really explore the world of theatre, because I didn't really know that much. Obviously, because my dad's directed pantos and regional theatre, I'd kind of gotten a sense for what theatre was, but really the history of it, I had no kind of clue really. Peter Brook and all those people. My mum would have learned about all these people, but it's kind of over my head. And suddenly I'm having to invest my time into learning about all these things. And it's it was a real learning curve. So anyone who is thinking about training for purposes, it's all very complicated now, isn't it, because of lockdown? But
of course,
anybody who has the feeling that that's what they want to do, they want to get into it. If you can, just get training, go and get some training, because it is so beneficial for not only your memory bank, like the stuff that you learn in terms of just your context of everything, because everything is inspired by everything else, but it also,
and to add to that, it's the transferable skills that you gain from that training.
It's literally that.
Yeah. Wow. I'm very much sort of an advocate for go get training if you can. If it's available to you, then do it.
Absolutely. Always. Yeah. And what happened after that? I graduated. The first production I did after graduating at the King's Head Theatre. It was a performance. It was a new play called Mermaids that had been actually written and performed as a reading, I think, in Liverpool previously. But then it was brought over to the King's Head, and that was an interesting one. That's where training comes in handy, because we had 4 days rehearsal, five shows. I think one of those days of rehearsal, it might have been 4.5 days, but one of them was definitely inside of a tent. I seem to remember. This is all the stuff. This is the kind of the pressure cooker that they put you in.
Yeah. I miss live theatre for stuff like that. Having 4 days to rehearse a whole show is like, no other industry would manage to get a full show up and running in 4 days.
And you try to say we're not viable. Like, we have such talent. We honestly do. But the show was about a trans woman living on an estate in South London. Oh shit! Excuse me, London. And this woman, it was like a 1 hour show. Sorry, lost my train of thought. It was a 1 hour show. What am I talking about? Oh, King's Head Theatre. Sorry, my brain does this.
All right. So we were talking about how this was your first job out of college. So you'd done, was it 3 years training at Rose Bruford? Yes, then you graduated. You had 4 days to put on the show.
Yes, and it was a case of I was in every scene. It was an hour long, and I had to pre-learn the script, and then it was like running behind stage to get a dressing gown on, to then put another dress on, to like put on a fascinator. It was a lot of things going on, a lot of different.
You definitely earned your wage there then.
Yeah, and then shortly after Mermaids, which was really kind of great experience, I went on to get an audition for Don't Forget the Driver, which was a new show that was being written by Tim Crouch, theatre veteran Tim Crouch, who was making his break into TV as well as me. And it was co-written by Toby Jones as well. That was a show about a coach driver in Bognor Regis, and I was auditioning for this part of Bradley. And we're talking about the transition from stage to screen. It was as simple as I went up for it. Didn't really think I was going to get it, because I thought it was kind of, I thought it was a beautiful script, and I worked for it. But at the same time, I was a bit like, well, that was nice, move on. I think I might have been doing something at the same time as the auditions, like a reading. And suddenly I realised they said, "Oh, we want you in for a recall." I met the director. Next thing you know, I had the job, and that was it. That was my break into TV. Wow. Really, my first gig.
So do you feel like, I mean, I don't know about your training at Rose Bruford exactly, but had you had much in the way of teaching of what to do for screen? We
did. I think we were in the very beginnings as a course of introducing that into the, what really.
Okay, so you had touched on it a bit. You knew kind of where to put yourself and whatever.
It kind of was a thing of like, you need to do a lot less, because what you're doing, because that's often the case, is that you need to give a lot more for theatre, and kind of the opposite. You kind of need to give such a small amount in TV and film. And I think depending on what you do, I think probably for film you do even less than you would in TV, because that's
an interesting one.
I would wager, I haven't actually done a full film myself. I've made a film. I will come on to that, but I kind of get the impression, because based on the story arcs, the narrative, the storytelling of TV, is that it is very much, you have a message, you only have a certain increment of time to get this story told. Films are about an hour and a half. You could be short to 45 minutes, you can be half an hour, even 10 minutes sometimes. And depending on what story you're telling, sometimes it's a case of actually kind of, it's about, our jobs are acting, isn't it? And we talk about investment, and the people talk about the method, but a lot of it is, it's about paving stones for the viewer. It's giving them indications of what's going on through.
I think that's a very interesting point, because I think a lot of us, and I know I'm guilty of this as well, is we kind of separate the industry into two parts, where we go, okay, on the one side you've got all of live theatre, And then on the other side, you've got everything that comes behind a screen. And within that is TV and film and every genre within that within those sort of huge umbrella terms. So it's kind of interesting to be able to separate it out and go, okay, maybe you actually need a different type of acting for the two.
Yeah, it's definitely the case from going from theatre to screen. But I mean, with thinking about film, I'm kind of speaking off inexperience really, but the idea of it's being at home. Looking at film, it's often the experience of film is that there's an immersion with that for the viewer, is that they will sit in the dark. They will, they'll have their full attention on a film because that's kind of their story. Whereas sometimes, what streaming and everything, and channel flicking, is that it can be, it's sometimes a little bit harder to
grab them.
Latch on to what's going on. Sometimes, if you've been distracted because ad break or whatever, you need to give the indication to what's happening. But then again, I suppose because streaming is booming, maybe there is the line is dissipating a bit. I think that the definition between what is film and what is TV, because they were so different back in the day, weren't they? You think about people saying, "Oh, you're a TV actor." Oh, okay. But
I think those sort of snob people do still exist. Those people who have their opinions on what's better than what. They're definitely still out there.
TV is so artful now. I mean, don't forget The Driver in its own right. I don't think it's available online. But no, it is coming to BritBox.
Oh, okay.
I think it might be going to BritBox US at the moment, and it might be going to BritBox UK at some point.
Okay, so keep an eye out for it. Don't forget The Driver, everyone.
The exact dates. But it is, if you get the chance to watch Don't Forget the Driver, we got cancelled for a second series because of the lockdown, where we didn't, lack of funding, insurance, that kind of thing. But we were actually I think we were one of 13 shows that got cancelled by the BBC. I don't know if that's private information.
Goodness.
But
the scale of that is just
it's a real knock on some good material, good product. Thinking about Don't Forget the Driver, it's such a beautiful show. Like that, we had Jamie Cairney, who was director of photography, who is masterful with the way he uses image. It's very much kind of almost portraiture. It's a bit like, well, which way? This way. It's a bit like that kind of thing there. Something like that will be the shot for a whole 30 seconds, and something will happen within that frame. It's not like there's it's as much character driven as it is, scenery driven. I suppose that's not a great way of describing it.
Well, here's hoping that maybe after things have settled a bit, possibly some of those shows might get picked back up again. We can keep our fingers crossed for you.
We can hope so.
Yeah. So then what happened next in the brief story of your life?
Oh yes, I actually, after filming Don't Forget the Driver, an audition came through for Sweet Charity at the Donmar Warehouse, and that was a whole thing. It was being, I think it was like almost like an open audition. It wasn't quite, but it was like they were looking far and wide for certain types of people to play a multitude of different parts, and it was being choreographed by Wayne McGregor as well, who's a world-renowned choreographer who's very set for those who don't know, in the ballet world. He often works with the Royal Ballet. He worked recently in the last year with the Rockettes, I believe. He's doing amazing things, beautiful things. So look up his work.
He is incredible. I'll add that.
But he essentially, he actually organised a dance round for us, which is crazy. It was a bit kind of lots of things. I don't quite know how I made it through, because I don't count myself as a dancer. I'm not in any way a dancer. I like to move, but I'm not really a dancer. So actually being there, it was quite intimidating. It felt very much a hark to the old Broadway, and you hear about people like, I gotta dance, I gotta put on my shoes, and let me have the chance, come on. I felt a little bit like a chorus line in that moment, but managed to get through.
Fantastic.
And, I don't know how. And then went on to do a couple more. I think it was about 4 or 5 recalls in all, kind of looking at like Lion King amount of recalls there. but ended up getting a part in that amazingly. And we were doing that from February, rehearsing until April, and then we opened in April, went until June, and it was very hot in June. Blimey, it's so hot in that theatre, and with all the blacks and all the lights and the small space, it was a very hot summer. Global warming, but it was.
I feel like that's a whole nother Q&A. That's a separate talk. Global warming.
How is global warming affecting the industry? But yeah, no, that was a real turning point, because actually it was, besides Mermaids, it was the first time I was getting to showcase transness actually as a means of actually showing it on a mainstream platform, I suppose, especially in the theatre world, in the British theatre world. It was actually a chance to show that there is trans talent available, and it's thriving, and it's you can incorporate it into anything really.
Of course, and I think the more times we can show on a big platform those kinds of things, the more it puts it at the forefront of people's minds, and the more likely they are to use it in future projects. So having chances like that to show everyone how amazing it can be is just a wonderful opportunity, really.
Yeah, I should talk about, actually, I forgot to mention, it was actually in college, because prior to college, I was actually, I was identifying as a man. I was going by Joseph. I was using Joseph as my name. I was kind of trying to drill down into this idea of, not hyper masculinity, but it was sort of, yeah, there was a box that I was putting myself into, very much so. And I was in college, and I started that way, and it was actually through that first year. This is why training is so important as well, because you get to discover what kind of performer you are and what kind of person you are as well, because it puts you
definitely. I think it develops everyone's character a lot.
Yeah, it puts you under so many spotlights. And but I realized in my first year actually that I was trans. I think I admitted it to myself, really. I kind of had a self-counseling session, and I went, "You're trans, you're trans." And that was, revelationary. Is that a word? Revelatory.
Yes, definitely.
And I so from there it was kind of the panic of, oh God, being trans now. What does that mean? Does that mean I get to work? Does that mean it came down to the thing, if I felt unsure enough about it, I might have kept it hidden, and then where would we be? I don't know. It's a thing of like.
But thankfully, you were sure. You knew enough to put it out there.
And I myself enough and to accept it. And I just felt, I kind of knew from experience that lying through something, or like not being genuine through something, it does make an impact on the kind of work that you do, as well as being, it just stops you, it hinders you in so many ways, and it stops you from being the full person that that people are drawn to. It kind of closes you off in a way, that kind of thing, like remaining in the closet. I personally believe, everybody feels differently about it, and of course safety is paramount.
Absolutely.
But thinking about things like, I don't know what I would be doing. I'd probably be doing a lot less it doesn't go that way for some people. Some people actually get threatened when they're very high up, having done great things, that they get told, you will not work again if you come out, blah, blah, blah. But I think it probably would have been the other way around for me, because...
And I guess you were in quite a unique position in the sense that you started your training sort of identifying as one way. So you saw what training would have been like if you hadn't necessarily come to these realizations, or you hadn't accepted it. And then to then move into a place where you come to these realizations, you go, okay, this is me now. You then went to it was the sort of the same college, the same training, but coming at it from a completely different angle, I guess.
Yeah. It kind of, it put a lot of things into a different context, obviously. But it's a slow process as well. I mean, finding transition is, regardless of what parameters and what legal boundaries are put in place, it's time-staking. Well, that's a bit negative. It's a long process. It takes a long time to work it out. If you've spent a long time seeing yourself in one way, or pursuing something, to kind of dismantle that and actually look at it for the pieces that it is, and actually go, okay, I need to look into this a bit more. It's a long time. It takes a lot of work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I know that a lot of people would argue that even years and years after they've sort of come out, that they're still working out exactly who they are, exactly how they fit.
Absolutely. I still am. I mean, I know in my heart that I am trans, but it is a constant thing. I'm not just, oh, I'm trans now and that's it. And it's not a case of like, there's not an end goal per se. It's like, I'm constantly changing. Like recently I've been having revelations about my own identity and my own gender, just being on my own, I suppose, being locked up inside. But,
I suppose more time to think about it, more time to actually really get in there and dissect what's going on, or what you want to be going on.
Yeah. So that's kind of what was going on. But I think, I'd had a couple of years by that point to really understand how I fit into this world of transness and femininity and trans femininity as well. But going on from that, it was getting that job in Mermaids, which was a real kind of high point for my self-esteem as well. Coming straight out and thinking, oh, this is working. It actually works. I can actually make a living off of being the person that I am, contextualizing it as a person that I am.
Which I think is great for other people to hear as well. You don't need to put yourself into that box to make sure that you still work, that there is work for anyone.
Boxes are overrated. I don't recommend boxes for anyone personally. No. I mean, if it works for you, it works for you, but
nobody needs boxes. No.
So it ended. Go back to Sweet Charity. That was an interesting process as well, because it was working out the dynamic, because with Mermaids it was a 3-hander. We didn't have separate changing rooms, dressing rooms. I don't think it's really talked about at all, really, not on a public scale. It means, the conversation that needs to be had really about dressing rooms and how trans people and gender non-conforming people assimilate into that.
That's an interesting point, because I think in sort of the public sphere, that conversation has come up in the sense of like high school changing rooms for PE and those sorts of things. We talk about that, but we don't necessarily talk about it in our own industry, which is odd. We usually look at ourselves first, but feels like we've gone out and looked at how other people are dealing with it, but not necessarily at what we need to do as an industry in the theatres.
Yeah, I think, I'm not sure how we started necessarily, probably just through Twitter or something, but I think there's a lot of talk about the Gender Recognition Act and reform of that. I don't know all of the details, and I'm working to learn all of them as much as I can, the way my brain works. But I do know that it's an important conversation that needs to be had, because it was something that didn't cause grief, but it was something that really it was a big part of the experience of being in that show. It was something that I have really learned from, if you can understand what I mean by that. I've learned from the experience, because I was being trans feminine. I kind of placed myself in a position where I was like, well, I feel like it would be most appropriate, and I've been in male changing rooms, and I've never really kind of felt an affinity with that space. And I said, well, if everyone is willing, I've done this at college as well. I in my final year, I said to my classmates, I said, would you mind? And of course, it's different because these people I've known for 3 years.
Of course, and there's a very different relationship there when you know someone for so long as someone that you meet on kind of practically on the street first day of the job.
Yes, and they were fine. Obviously, my friends were fine with it. These people, I'm working with celebrities all of a sudden, and I'm having to ask this question of like, right, this is regardless of what politics you have, how do you feel when how do you feel about me being in your space, which would you allow me would you allow it for it to be my space as well? Is that okay? You kind of, it's those questions that, are having to be asked at the moment, and we need to interrogate what questions are being asked, what needs to be asked, what shouldn't, what should. It's something, we're really, I've only realized kind of in the last few months how early trans people, the community, the whole sphere of transness, how early it is in its development. I mean, it's been
definitely
around. Trans people have been around since humans have been around, but
of course,
about how they are included in society is so untalked about. It's not a discussion that's ever really been had.
And hopefully these kinds of, if you start to ask that question on one show, then all the people involved in that show will be ready and know that that is something to consider for the next show, without necessarily having to go through that huge moment of tension again.
Yes, and it caused tension. It caused tension. I believe, from where I'm sat, I think it did. And I'm not wanting to. That's the thing. No, I don't think any trans person, in a sense of them just being a trans person, if you take away everything else, just the transness, it's not wanting to be volatile in any way. It's not wanting to be a problem. That's the thing. It's really not wanting to be something that is negative. I think it exists as something that is beautiful and positive, and it's how people try. It's how making people see that that's what it is, really.
Definitely, and I think if everyone starts from that point of going, okay, nobody here is wanting to be negative, and nobody here is wanting to cause kind of, an argument, essentially, if we start from that point, then hopefully we can achieve more quickly without having to go through these kind of awkward, kind of volatile, like you say, volatile is a good word for it, sort of moments.
The more we talk about it, the more we will feel like we can talk about it. That's
definitely
my experience of it as well. And I've had a number of jobs since Sweet Charity. Sweet Charity was like the beginning of that conversation that I'm going to be having to have a lot through my career. I've even been having it on the last TV gig that I've had, which we'll come on to. But I think the more we talk about it, if we allow ourselves to open the dialogue, then it's open, and we can.
And everyone will benefit from that in the long run.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So we are early in the process, but we hopefully the more we can have these conversations, the better. So everyone keep talking about it, keep asking the questions, basically.
Yes, absolutely. Going on from that, I can't remember. There was like a there was a time where I think there was a quiet moment. Was there? No, I had the summer. That was right. And then I got the audition for The Watch, which came through the summer of 2019, and I got it come through. I was with a friend. I was out in Westfield, and I had a friend. I got this call from my agent. She said, "Okay, so I've got this part come through. It's for a dwarf, and I'm 6'2", so I was a little bit confused, and so I said to her, "Are you sure?" And they said, "Yes, it's a gender fluid, non-binary dwarf." Right, okay. Well, I'll go up for it. I'll read the script. I'll go for it. I'm not going to say no, because they said, yeah, it's filming in Cape Town. I was like, okay, well, okay, let's go for it. And I read the script. It was written by Simon Allen. Simon Allen's fantastic writer, who was our showrunner for The Watch. Read it. It was balmy. The whole thing balmy. And I went for it. And comparatively to like Sweet Charity, I think I did more recalls for Sweet Charity than I did for The Watch. It's strange because The Watch has ended up being such a big part of my life, and just the scale of the project as well. I mean, it's a lot of trust they're putting in.
There's a lot of trust.
Yeah, I don't even think I did a self-tape. I just went in for an audition. I did another recall with the producer and the director, Craig Viveros and Johan Nobel. And then I went on to do another recall. And that was it. I was in.
Great. I mean, that's the dream, isn't it? Just a couple of auditions and then bang.
It wasn't actually until we got to Cape Town and we were on the flights and we were going over and we actually got out and we sat in our, accommodation, realized we were there for 6 months making a new show for BBC America. It wasn't until we actually kind of evaluated, we all sat together as a cast and went, wow, this is quite big, actually. So hopefully people really respond to what the show is. I can't really talk too much about, I haven't really talked much about any of the shows, but I think what the show is at the moment, it is what I was saying about opening the dialogue. I really feel like the part I'm playing, Cheery, does an amazing job at starting that conversation, actually opening up a dialogue about non-binary existence and transness, be it a dwarf who's experiencing that, but it's all comparable. It's comparable. It's all it's all there to see from a human perspective, and I think people are going to. I really believe people are going to respond to it well. I'm very excited for it.
Great. So, do we have any idea on a release date for that yet? I know that obviously this year's changed
for the US. The US release date is January 3rd. That's going to be exclusive to BBC America. They haven't got a release date for the UK as of yet. They are thinking springtime. That's what they're thinking. We'll hope for early springtime. We can only hope. I can't say.
I have a sneaky suspicion that when we do get a release date, we will find it on your social media. So we could probably look for it there.
Yes, you will find it on my social media. My handle is really Eaton-Kent, which is really Eaton-Kent. Eaton-Kent has no hyphen in the handle, but my name does have hyphen.
Okay, so if everybody goes and how about you go follow Joe right now, then you will know as soon as this fantastic new program hits the screens.
Yes, I'm already posting lots of little things. Yeah.
Okay. Well, it sounds very interesting. I'm sure there'll be lots of teasers for everyone to have a look at already.
Oh, lots. You'll see lots. There's lots of mentions of queer magic, and we have sneak peeks of the show as well. It's a teaser trailer somewhere amongst my Twitter feed.
Sounds like a really fascinating topic.
Yeah, it's a really great show.
Right. Okay, I mean, that's a lot. You've given us a lot of your life story just there, but there's so much to unpack with that. I'm not sure where to start. I think we should go with the big one, which is the one that everybody always wants to know about. You have successfully done the thing that so many actors want to do, which is you did your sort of traditional drama school training, you worked on stage, and then you broke into screen.
Yeah.
So anybody out there who's going, yep, I want to do what they've just done, where do they start? What do they need? What can they be doing to kind of exercise their skills, or how do they break down that wall that a lot of people sort of see there?
I can acknowledge. I am very lucky to have gotten to where I am. Yeah, that's not to say that I'm not any good. But it is a thing of, I think everybody has in some way the potential to make it, because there's such a variety of the amount of the kinds of performances. There's no limit to what you can bring as an individual. I think of course, yes, I've had those projects come along at such an early time, but there's nothing to say that it would have, if it were 2 years later, it's I think sometimes the perfect job comes along and you do a good job in the room, you impress them, you win them over with your kindness and your spirit, and you get it, and then it's about going forward with that. I remember I was really keen on monopolizing on Don't Forget the Driver, which was a relatively small production. We only had 6 weeks filming for this whole thing. And it was very tight schedule as well, but I was really kind of intent on making sure that, I was putting it out there because I was proud of it as well. So, it was about putting it on social media. It's about putting yourself out there to say, I am here and I'm doing this, putting it on your show reel, making sure that you have everything on your CV as you want it, making sure that everything's arranged appropriately, making sure that you look the way that you feel best fits your brand, because branding is so much about it as well. Because I know that being trans in itself kind of is a niche. It is a niche. It's as much a niche as having, another diversity. You know what I mean? It's
Definitely.
and yeah, and also because there are so little, the pool of trans actors at the moment is small comparatively. The competition is not as stiff for people who might be perfect for something like Downton Abbey. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely, yeah.
It's sometimes it happens, and it really literally just happened. And I am so lucky that I've been able to get what I've had so far. Honestly, it is really about owning what you have. That's what I can drive home, is that it is honestly what you have inside of you, and that's not just kind of it's about what is honest and true and helps you to connect with the people that you are going to work with, that you are working with.
I think that is a great message. Yeah. So basically you're saying we have to know kind of what we are in that moment. We have to make sure that everything matches up to that, so that the product you are presenting to those casting directors is exactly what you want to present. So show reels, spotlight profiles, whatever that may be, social media, that everything kind of matches up to how you want to portray yourself to the outside world.
There is no pressure in the idea of having it to be exactly how you want it to be. I mean, it can be. I'm winging it a lot of the time. I kind of.
So are we all, Joe. So are we all.
We all kind of we think. Honestly, it's up to you. Could have made a mistake, and if it works, run with it. It's something. Your brand is completely individual to you. You will never be the same as the next person. You have your own thing, but you must acknowledge that. You must understand that and recognize it, and then present it in the way that you are. I know it sounds very kind of metaphysical, very very spiritual, but it is so much about that, and that's what we do as actors, isn't it? Is that we are all about connection, and we are all about telling a story.
Yeah, definitely.
It's all part of the job. It happens in the audition room. It happens when you're making your self-tapes and your show reels, and when you're writing those cover letters or those letters to the casting directors. You are putting yourself out there and being the truest person that you can be, that is representative of you. That's what you have to do. And the projects will come along if you breed in yourself a positivity and a kindness and a connection with your fellow human being. It will fall into place, and the universe will speak, I believe, honestly.
I mean, I think that's a very great positive message there. So I hope that everybody watching is feeling particularly inspired now to go and kind of think about that and digest it. Okay, moving to possibly a slightly less positive place, but possibly not, depending on what you think about this. So obviously this year has been, to put it lightly, a bit of a mess, shall we say?
It's been terrible.
Bit of a mess. Lockdown has kind of put just a completely different spin, particularly on our industry. And by our industry, I kind of mean the arts in general. Do you feel like you've faced new challenges this year? Do you feel like you've had to sort of change the way you're working or change the way you're approaching your career?
I think doubt is the biggest killer. I think it's kind of obvious, isn't it? But it's I've mentioned it earlier. It's the idea of, oh God, is that going to impact what happens with me? This thing or another, is my hairline too far back? Is all all these things? And I have had those dark days as well. I kind of think, am I good enough? I found that through my life I have perfectionist tendencies. I do like things to be exacting when it comes to what I'm creating. Not necessarily, I'm getting better at it, but I mean, in terms of wanting things to be an exact way. I remember when I was learning how to play the violin, it worked in the end because it was, I got to a good standard, but honestly, being a the torture I put myself through over the smallest of things, the smallest of, like, before I'd even played a note, I'd be kicking myself. Because
I think many actors and probably many actor musos can relate to that.
Yeah, but that kind of that sums it up, doesn't it? Is the idea that you might not have even done anything, and you will be like giving yourself hell. And I think that's something that we as actors, we're very sensitive people. We need to yes, we need to just know that it's fine, even when it's terrible. Looking at now, I mean, I have so many friends who are just not feeling all right, not doing all right, and what's been happening has forced them into positions, into scenarios that they really dreaded getting into. It's kind of sped up a process of kind of decline that might have happened if they were, you know, not concentrating. And they've been, you know, they've had as much focus as they could have, and lockdown has just put them into a place. And I think, yes, that we can acknowledge that it's a terrible time, but we need to find unity. I think we need to hold each other. We need to be together.
Absolutely.
In a time that is really rough, we need to be able to say, I'm here for you. I am willing to help you in any way that I can. It's not to say that you always can help everybody, because nobody can help everybody. But it's doing those good deeds where you can. And honestly, it makes such an impact on how you feel. It's almost like an exercise for the spirit, isn't it? It's good.
Oh, definitely.
Good deeds and positivity. It really, it brings you up. I know how tricky it can be. Am I answering the question right? I think
you absolutely are answering the question. And actually, I think that kind of brings up quite a good point, which is that quite recently, Pearson Casting, who obviously, as you know, runs CCI, kind of started up their own supporting campaign of that same kind of idea, saying we all do need to support each other and connect with each other. They started the I Support You campaign. If you go on the CCI Twitter or Instagram, you'll see it. But it's that same idea, exactly what you've just been saying, Joe, where, you know, in the act of just simply telling somebody that you support them, or telling somebody that you notice them, you recognize them, we can be such a positive force in their life for that moment. But not only that, we also can influence ourselves to get into that same mindset for our own sort of personal well-being. So it's a great campaign. If anybody wants to have a look at it, it's I Support You, and you can find it on we're CCI 2020 on Twitter, or Collective Creative Initiative on Instagram. And it's exactly kind of what Joe's just said, which is look after each other.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be checking that out as well.
We've had a lovely comment come in from Michelle, who says, "What a fantastic life philosophy! I can see why you are successable." So there you go, Joe. You've definitely inspired someone today. So thank you.
That's very kind,
Don't
Michelle.
forget, everyone, we've got about just over 10 minutes left. If anybody does want to ask Joe any questions at all about their career, about their training, about kind of anything industry related, you are more than welcome to pop a comment into the box and ask any questions you kind of want to know about what Joe's been up to. Please do feel free to do that.
And I'll try not to go off my answer. I'll try to keep it short. Well,
no, tangents are good. We like tangents. Tangents give us exciting information we might not otherwise have had. Okay, sort of moving on to, so you have had what has been a very successful career since graduating. You've had some fantastic jobs that as you've told us, you very much enjoyed, that you've managed to do a whole variety of different kind of jobs in the industry as well, which is obviously, I think a lot of actors' dream is to be able to put their hand in lots of different pies and just have a go at lots of different things. But of course, the acting journey is often a very bumpy road. Do you feel like there have been any particular points in your career when it's maybe not been going so well? Do you think there are any low points that you've had? And if so, what did you do about them? How did you find the sort of strength to get out of those of those points?
The first thing that comes to mind actually is going back to actually before college. I remember when I was doing shows at the Belgrade, and I hadn't trained formally anything. I had a gap year straight after school, and I actually thought, because I was working and I got a job with the Belgrade, and I also did a local youth Christmas show. I was doing stuff, and I thought, well, do you know what? Now I'm working, I don't need to go to college, because I'd already auditioned for drama school, but I'd only been successful in a couple of areas. Like I got Rose Bruford, Mountain View was another interest, and I thought to myself, well, I don't really need it if I'm doing all this work, And the fact is, that didn't work out in the end. What happened was I ended up not working for the rest of the year. Like, it was just 3 months of work and then having a wage, like the biggest amount of money that I'd had, just doing a theatre job. And suddenly I was, having to I was like desperate, and I actually went on to job seekers allowance for only a couple of weeks because it was kind of unbearable. But I did manage to get a job at a fish and chip restaurant. It's I've kind of gone on a tangent, but it was the idea of those times you've had problems in the month. Yes, it's just, I think what really kind of those times when it's really kicked me up the arse, for lack of a better phrase, it's been when I've recognized my ego got in the way. A lot of the times it is about ego, and I even saw it at college. I'm naming no names, but I've seen, not even just my year, I'm talking like, I do see it in schools as well, beyond my own training. Like when ego intercepts, it really takes you on a different journey. It takes you on a road that you're not actually knowing that you're going down. And before you know it, ego takes a hit, and you realize you're in the middle of nowhere. You don't recognize where you are. And you need to find your way back. And it's hard to do that. And it really does knock the confidence. It really does. It's not good for people to get invested into their egos, because inevitably the ego will take a hit because of one thing or another, because of lockdown, because of that job you didn't get, or because of whatever it is. Maybe it's just a comment online. It can be as small as that. It will really affect you in ways that you didn't realize it could, because you've been investing in something that you shouldn't need to invest in. It's ego is only so helpful, and really it's something that doesn't propel. It's not the thing that propels you into music.
We're definitely getting deep here on Wednesday afternoon, aren't we? Well, if there's anybody sort of watching going, I don't know if that is me, is that me, could that be me? Is there anything, what would you say? Is there a kind of a warning sign for going, how do they know if they're going down that path, or before they take that hit and have to climb out of it?
I think it's safe to say everybody has ego to an extent. I mean, it's we talk about somebody who's got a big ego. That's kind of what I'm talking about, is when your ego gets inflated, because ego is the sense of self, isn't it? I'm using the right terminology, but it's about having a big ego. When you've got that, it just gets in the way. But so knowing what that is, I suppose a good indicator of it is, have you noticed how other people are around you lately? Have you noticed that they might seem a bit despondent? Have you noticed that the people that you're working with aren't responding to you in the way that you want them to? Those are kind of symptoms of when the ego has gotten in the way. It's not always the case, but sometimes it is a case of, is it actually something that I'm doing that's actually getting in the way? It's not saying that you are entirely responsible for the way that people act around you, but sometimes you have an impact on how people are, and it's often to do with how much you can give them. It's how much you give them in the way you work. Yeah.
And that's not necessarily to say that we need to invoke a sense of paranoia here either. That if you are lacking in self-confidence, that can be just as damaging on the other side of the scale. It's just kind of, if you feel like you're struggling to get the right response out of people, or to get the response that you expect, then maybe that's something to look at and to consider.
It is a really fine balance that you have to find it, but that's it's all part of being, you know, an actor who tells the stories of humans, who tells the stories of people. Is that it's we all are, you know, it's a delicate balance between you know, having a sense of self and understanding your place and your effect, and knowing actually you are worth putting yourself forward in that way. It's a mind game. It really is. I mean, like, that's part of branding is if you are on your own doing it, I can acknowledge it is very hard doing. I've done it myself. I've tried my best to make things you know, clear as possible to people about, you know, what I feel like I am. And when you are on the inside of that, it's very hard to see what other people are saying. But that's acting as well. It's you know, it's about being honest. I think honest with yourself about what you are, and being willing to be objective about yourself in some respects, I think, as well. It's helpful.
Yeah, and Indra definitely agrees with us. He said, "You are right. The ego will take a hit." So, I guess it's great to hear other people sort of agreeing with what we're saying today. That this is definitely something that people should take on board and consider for the future. And we've only got about 4 minutes, so I would like to throw you a bit of a curveball for the final question, and talk about something completely different, which we've briefly touched on. But that is your life as an actor-muso. Because I would argue that when you said at the beginning that sort of being a trans actor is a niche in itself, I'd argue that an actor-muso is also a niche in itself, because, I mean, from my point of view, I think actor-musos are just a different breed. You guys are so talented with the amount of instruments you play. But could you maybe talk to us a little bit about your experience in learning all these different instruments, possibly about how have you managed to keep them all up, because of course you play such a wide variety. We didn't ever quite get to the trombone, so maybe we could talk about that as well.
I learned that for a show called Roll Over Beethoven. That was at the Belgrade Theatre. That was in my first year. I was it was she said, "Oh, there's a part in this show that actually you might be quite good for, but it requires you to learn the trombone. This is the lengths you have to go to as an acting musician. You have to pick up instruments left, right, centre." There's not anything wrong with that. It's just a lot of work, but it was a case. I've of course, having had the experience with things like with, you know, playing the violin from such an early age. So, you know, I recommend if you are thinking of starting playing an instrument, start now. Even if you are old, start now. Earlier you start, the sooner you can kind of embed it into your body. It's not necessarily that you know, it's not the old dog new tricks thing. That's kind of a bit mythic. Really, it's about getting it into your body as soon as you can. That's the important thing. But with, you know, playing the trombone, I mean, it was literally a thing I had to kind of. I was given a month. I think I had a couple of lessons, and when it comes to playing instruments that you've never played before, if you are given a set amount of music, this is a tip. If you have music, if it's about kind of constructing, if it's about devising, it's a different thing. You kind of have to know how to play the instrument. But if you are kind of picking up a trombone, for example, for the first time, or the accordion, whatever, it's about finding out what it is that you have to play for the show, what you have to play, and learning that, as like embedding that, because that's what sells the show. That's what's going to sell the show. That's what makes the story work. And that's what is necessary of you. You don't need to learn how to play all these virtuosic pieces. That's not important. What's most important is that you learn the piece that's set in the work. That's the job at hand, isn't it? And so as soon as you learn that, the quicker you can learn that, then it makes life so much easier in terms of like that. That's a lot of what I've been doing. I mean, like, I think I've picked up, like, you know, recorder. I've never played that, but like at school, you kind of pick these things up and you just say, well, what is it I've got to learn? I've only got a certain amount of time. Learn the thing, learn the notes, learn the phrase. That's what I'd say.
So be specific, choose the bit that you need and work on that, and that alone.
Yes.
And on that note, we have actually run out of time. This hour has absolutely flown by. Thank you so
No.
much, Joe, for being so inspiring. I'm sure everybody watching this has got so many ideas to go away with. We're working on our brand, we're picking up our instrument, we are making sure that we have our ego in check, and all sorts of other things have happened today. So I think we've definitely gained a lot from it. I'd like to say a huge thank you to you for coming on to CCI today. It's been an absolute pleasure having you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
I am going to take you out of the stream now, but don't go anywhere. Just hang around backstage and I'll see you in just a minute.
Good. Thank you.
Ah, what a fantastic session. I hope you've enjoyed hearing me having a chat. And don't forget, you can get in touch with Joe if you would like to connect with them. They are on Twitter, and you can find Joe on our faculty page. So if you go to collectivecreativeinitiative.co.uk, click on the faculty, and then you'll be able to find Joe there. You'll see all the information that you need if you would like to get in touch, find out anything. Particularly, obviously, we're waiting for the release date for The Watch. So if you would like to know when that's coming, that's probably a very good place to find it. Coming up later on this afternoon at 3 o'clock, we will be doing yoga for performers with the lovely Rosie Secker. She's coming back. And then at 4:30, we've got contemporary dance with Gregory Haney. So lots more to be getting on with today.